Healing Stories Project is the notion that lifting people's voices, people who have experienced life in their community, lifting their voices ought to generate a new way of being, ought to generate an appreciation and understanding of the plight of people, because this is what they say is happening in their lives.
For a long time, and you see me holding a bottle of water in my hand. I try not to shake it up, but if you shake it up, this is what it looked like when it come out of the faucet. Right. Out of the faucet that the city said that it's a good water. We had water that came out of our faucet in April of 2014 that looked like this, and this came out of the faucet Sunday.
I think the goal really was to recruit partners in Flint, and other organizers recruited partners from other cities, give voice to people who were impacted by racism.
Perception of this complexion of skin is too well, whoever told you that, they lie. You're God, you're beautiful, you're small.
First of all, to heal, not only those who have the stories to share, those who are hearing the story and understand their participation in the perpetuation of inequity.
Why is our right to live in our communities challenged? Why is our right to have a home challenged? Why is our right to move around is a challenge?
I think it takes a lot of courage to share. There's a lot that's buried within the trauma we've experienced in the Native community. So just being able to speak about that is healing in itself, not just for the individual, but for the family, relatives, relations, and the community.
Throughout the attack, they called us every derogatory name you can think of. The final straw was when I heard the sharp click of a switchblade. The skinhead grabbed my hair in his hand and said, "All you squaws need haircuts." I kicked his shin, hard. I heard my Grandma Gobbo's voice saying, "Fight, Macouse, come on." I started becoming a wild woman, swinging at everything, kicking anything in sight, and screaming. I had found my voice.
You can relate to the individual and what has occurred to them, and it's more than just a statistic or a code headline. It really brings life and humanity to a topic such as racism and undoing racism and racial equity, and then how to heal.
My mother would feed her just as well as she would feed me. Her name was Ida Baker, and it would be surprising that you would remember a child's name from age 3 or 4 years old. But I remembered her name. She was a little Caucasian girl, and she would come, and I would enjoy the day. I would be so excited to see the next day come because she was going to come and play with me. Well, one day she was going home, and my mother, I guess, made up her mind to trust me to go to the end of the street to walk her home. When I walked her home, as she walked and knocked on her door, her father came to the door. And when he saw me, his words was, and I can see it almost as if it was yesterday. He says, "Oh no, take her away from here. Take her away from here." And I tried to figure out in my heart what was wrong with me.
Initially, when we were brought to the table, the issues were around housing, transportation, criminal justice, and education. What we knew through our organization that I'm also a part of is We the People of Detroit. We had worked in all of these different communities, be it Detroit, Flint, Benton Harbor, and we knew the impact that emergency management had taken on those particular cities in creating more repression, more disparity, more loss of equity around ownership, voting rights, local control.
I thought because we are the invisible minority in Michigan, we're about 0.7% of the population, we need to have a platform to speak. And I just thought, I have seen and personally dealt with a lot living in the North myself. So I kind of took those negative and toxic experiences, and I wanted to transform them for, kind of personally to bring it into the community.
Black women always had a job of some kind. It was the black man that could not always get a job. And then that made the black man angry with the black woman because the woman was working and what he thought was taking his place in providing for his family.
Sometimes we're so ensconced, if you will, in our own history that we forget how similar as minorities our history has been in this country. There is room for everyone in this work. And they began to build their own relationships without having to be directed by the round table. It was out of their own sense of the power of being united and connected.
Beyond just being acknowledged, I think people have to understand that anyone that hears that story has to take ownership to respond in whatever way they can to alleviate that pain. That it's not just good enough to hear the story, that you have to deputize yourself and take full responsibility.
We're talking about changing the lives of people on the ground. That's huge. It takes patience.
I think it was a very courageous effort to put forth the healing stories. I think that they were able to provide the beginnings of an investment in moving the community toward healing. I think that there is much, much, much more work to be done, but I do think it's a good start.
Crossing boundaries is not easy. Stay in there and hang in there, because if it is the desire to transform from a racist society to one that is not, requires that we have to stay in the room, committed to the change, to the transformation. It's beyond change. We're talking about transformation.